art at UCLan is a dynamic set of possibilities. I think that there are a lot of very interesting students, staff who are very accomplished at what they do, and I think that there's a lot of testing out and trying new things that happens here.
Chris Meigh-Andrews is Emeritus Professor of Electronic and Digital Art at the University of Central Lancashire. His research, teaching, work as a practicing artist and writer of international repute has made a significant contribution to the development of fine art at UCLan.
I became a member of staff here in about 1984 as a part-timer, and that gradually grew until I was made full-time in 1997. I was made reader in 2000 and made professor in 2007. Yeah, I have a range of roles that vary between pure research, getting on with exploring the context and background and history of the medium that I work in. I teach undergraduate students in fine art, I teach postgraduate fine art students, and I also supervise research students at MPhil and PhD level.
Professor Meigh-Andrews set up the Electronic and Digital Art Unit in 2003 to provide a focus for practice-based MA, MPhil and PhD research into the historical context of video art and new media practice.
And the idea was to set up a research unit for artists working with the digital and with the electronic, and that would involve a study collection, which is part of which you see behind me, which is quite a large collection of mainly videotapes in a number of different formats. They contain work by artists, some of whom use film, but most of whom have used video in one form or another. The collection now has over 2,000 titles in it, which makes it the second largest collection of its kind in the UK. It's a study collection, which means that it's available for staff, students and researchers. It's a kind of personal collection, but it's quite a wide-ranging collection. It's historical as well as contemporary, and it forms the basis of my research, because part of what I've done here is to develop an interest in the history of the medium. So my research has a number of strands that are all overlapped and connected to each other. History and context is important. I'm interested in what other artists have done using the mediums of artist video and electronic and digital moving image. I'm interested in exploring the forms that the work takes. So looking at, for example, the development of installation as a form. So my research breaks down into practice, that is making works and investigating possibilities of making new works, and the history and context, which is reading and writing and looking at work. I've been working as an artist using electronic moving image video specifically since the late 1970s. I studied film and television, and then I did a master's degree in fine art in the 1980s.
His 2001 PhD dissertation, Mapping the Image, was later developed upon and published in 2006 as A History of Video Art, the Development of Form and Function.
I rewrote the dissertation, expanded it and developed it to be more international, because the dissertation was just looking at a transatlantic experience, that is UK video art and American video art. But the book was an attempt to look at a wider range of artists, so it included work going on in Europe, Canada and various other countries. And this year right now I just came back from a sabbatical. I spent 6 months working on the second edition of the book, which is an expanded version which will have more photographs, cover more countries. So I've really tried to take the original book and expand the scope of it, and that will be coming out in 2013. I deliver papers at conferences, I write reports, but I also curate exhibitions, and I guess most significantly in terms of UCLan would be the Digital Aesthetic. Something that happens about every 5 years. I did the first one in 2001, and it brings together artists who are interested in the digital and what the digital might mean to fine art practice, and what impact it has on the culture.
He is currently working with the Harris Museum in Preston to develop Digital Aesthetic³, the final exhibition in the series, scheduled for October 2012. A prolific artist whose work has been exhibited worldwide, he is increasingly perceived as a pioneer in the field of sculptural and projection video installations. The recently completed Monument project was a site-specific digital image installation commissioned as part of a major restoration of the Monument to the Great Fire of London.
It is the world's tallest freestanding monument. And basically, it was a panoramic view, continuously recording and producing a set of time lapses at the end of each day. I got very interested in the relationship between the contemporary view of the city and a view of the city as it was in the 1670s when the monument was first built. So there was this idea about a sense of place, a sense of time, and the relationship between the technology as it was then, the dawn of science in England. It was quite a large-scale work. It was commissioned in 2007. It started operation in 2009 and it ran until 2011, so it was a 3-year commission.
In May 2011, Professor Meigh-Andrews, in collaboration with the astrophysicist Dr. Robert Walsh, produced Sunbeam, an outdoor digital projection event featuring high-definition images of the Sun from NASA's Solar Dynamics Observatory.
It was a site-specific projection onto large solar panels that the university had installed. I was interested in highlighting the fact that these panels existed, making more people aware of them, but also working with scientists at the university who had a relationship to NASA and working with extremely detailed images of the Sun that I wanted to use to project onto the solar panel. It was an interesting challenge to find a way to turn those panels into screens. And we literally went up and covered the panel temporarily. The idea would be that we would turn day into night in a sense and play with the relationship between sunlight, image, light, energy.
It's been brilliant tonight to actually see so many people who've just seen it in the newspaper or actually heard it on the news to actually come out and actually want to stand to see what the Sun is really like in ways they've never seen it before. Really is something very special.
Because I think what happens is that science develops a certain kind of imagery, and the culture needs to absorb them somehow and make them their own. And I think artists have a hand in doing that sometimes, and bringing them into a different kind of use.
There's a history of artists being very interested in the Sun. Turner famously said on his deathbed apparently that the Sun was God. There's an idea that for artists the Sun is a source of inspiration. A lot of artists, obviously, especially painters, working with light and painting light, someone like Turner particularly. So for me it was interesting as a video artist working with lenses and with light to play around with the idea of the Sun as the image itself. Having made it, how is it made available? What form does it take? How is the work being understood, decoded, explored by the viewer? So that's a very important part of my research, I think, really, in a sense, because I think the history of artist video is really about a medium discovering itself, artists discovering what it can do and how it can be used to make art rather than to make television or, to make film. So there's a whole new audience.
In addition to providing his students with an understanding of the heritage, legacy and potential of the moving image medium, what impact does he feel his work has had within the wider fine art field?
With other colleagues, what I've tried to do is really open up the idea that video is a legitimate medium for making art and that it has a role in contemporary art. And that's not just about the subject, that's also about how it's shown, how it's experienced, its place in the canon of contemporary art. And that's influenced the way that galleries now show work, the kind of work they show, and that's changed, of course, according to the technology. But I think that there's been a cultural influence by artists like myself who have made work before there was any way of showing it. We used to make work and then wonder how it might get shown. So there's an impact, if you like, on the culture. And that's still going on. Digital Aesthetic is about bringing contemporary artists who work with digital and making their work more accessible to audiences who may expect when they go in the Harris to see sculpture and painting and printmaking and photography, but are not quite so sure about interactive works or site-specific work or work that uses screens, projections or environments or that sort of thing. So it's about opening out people's awareness of the possibilities of the medium.